بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: باب ما يفسد الصوم ويوجب الكفارة. باب ما يفسد الصوم ويوجب الكفارة: من أكل أو شرب أو استعطى أو احتقن أو اكتحل بما يصل إلى حلقه أو أدخل إلى جوفه شيئا من أي موضع كان غير إحليله أو استقاء أو استمنى أو باشر فأمنى أو أمذى أو أكرر النظر فأنزل أو حجم أو احتجم وظهر دم عامدا ذاكرا لصومه فسد، لا ناسيا أو مكرها، أو طار إلى حلقه ذباب أو غبار أو فكر فأنزل أو احتلم أو أصبح فيه طعام فلفظه أو اغتسل أو تمضمض أو استنثر أو زاد على الثلاث أو بالغ فدخل الماء حلقه لم يفسد. ومن أكل شاكا في طلوع الفجر صح صومه، لا إن أكل شاكا في غروب الشمس أو معتقدا أنه ليل فبان نهار.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وأجمعين، أما بعد. Today's dars, Wallahu A'lam, for the one who doesn't understand these ahkam, should be fardul ayn on every Muslim. Whether it's from this dars or another dars, but this knowledge, because today we will cover those things that invalidate the fast. And this is very important because many people I know personally and I have met and have brought issues to me where they did things during Ramadan, even though mashallah they woke up for suhoor and they made the niyyah and they were fasting, but they did things in the day in Ramadan that no doubt invalidated their fast. And many people that I know left off things that were very important that they could have done that would not have invalidated their fast, so they put that hardship on themselves with no reason. Now somebody could say, so what, they didn't know. Tayyib, if you didn't know and you had no ability to know, khalas, you're free from blame. But if you had the ability to learn and then you didn't, and you didn't know, and you did something wrong, then you have not just the sin of doing something wrong, but you have the sin of not learning it. In San Diego today, we have how many thousands, hundreds plus thousand Muslims? We've been told 150, 160,000 Muslims in San Diego. We have, alhamdulillah, maybe about 30 plus masajid. Right? This dars is free. There's nothing's preventing. How many people are here? All over the world, people can join the Zoom, they can watch the video, they could learn. But then when they don't, and then they do something wrong, then they will be sinful, even if they didn't know, because it was their responsibility to learn. Tayyib, I'm going to try to go through this in a brief manner. I'm not going to go into a lot of discussion of details and khilaf and too much, because these I want to cover. These are very important to get through this. There are three categories that we're going to cover today, inshallah. One, those things that invalidate your fast. Tayyib. Second, those things that do not, but people usually think they do. So these are clarifications of what doesn't invalidate your fast. And the last is when you have doubt about the time of the fast and how to deal with that situation. I'm going to depend on Zad, obviously that's the matan, and Rawt al-Murbi', which is the sharh, and others. But I'm also going to balance this out with a lot of the work of Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen in Sharh al-Mumti'. And I've summarized in notes here from these. Why? Because you have the classic shuruh that discuss the classic case scenarios, and that's excellent. But we also need to know about contemporary issues. And that was always good to get a classic explanation and a contemporary explanation. When I was studying Zad, the sheikh that I used to study with, He did it this way. Even when we did umda and these things, he would get one of the classic udda, one of the classic shuruh, but then he would also have the sharh of Sheikh Ibn Jibreen for udda. Umda with udda and the sharh Sheikh Ibn. So you have one very classic, Bahauddin Maqtasi, and you have one contemporary. With Za'ad, we did the same thing, Rawt al-Murbi', very classic. But with it, Sharh al-Mumti', at least some fawaid from it, very contemporary. Why? Because there are new issues that we'll be dealing with. Right now, today we will discuss about getting the vaccine. Does it invalidate your fast or not? Right? These are important things for us to know that you wouldn't get just from the classic mutun, not to underrate the benefit from them, so we'll balance it out. Tayyib. What invalidates the fast? Akala wa sharib. That's the first two mentioned here. Right? And in reality, there are three basic things that invalidate your fast. Three: eating, drinking, and spousal relations. Jima'. These three things are the usul of it. From that, we will discuss some scenarios and things. But we're going to go over, inshallah, 12 here that I have listed, things that invalidate the fast from the matan, and then discuss about some other things. So the first, because I want you to memorize them and learn them and take notes. So what is the first? Eating. What is the second that is mentioned with it? Drinking. This is based on the Quran itself, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained in Surah Al-Baqarah that kulu washrabu, drink, eat and drink, hatta, until you see the difference between khayt al-abyad, yani the white string, and the dark string, meaning when the fajr comes in. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow? Eating and drinking in this ayah. So both of these are clearly established from the Quran itself. Tayyib. What about the sunnah? We also find the hadith that is reported by Bukhari and Muslim from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about yatruku ta'amahu wa sharabuhu, and the one who leaves off his, and this is hadith Qudsi actually, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the one who's fasting, he leaves off his eating and drinking and his shahwa, this is the spousal relation, min ajli, yani because of my sake. So from the sunnah, from the clear sahih hadith, we also find that you do not eat and drink from, yani in the daytime in Ramadan while fasting. And there is ijma' of the ummah. So we have the Quran, the ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah, and then you have the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, muttafaqun alayh, sahih hadith, and then you have the ijma' of this ummah. Tayyib, where is this ijma' documented? We should always give adilla. So I looked up the book Maratib al-Ijma' of Ibn Hazm with the Hashiyah of Ibn Taymiyyah, and they agreed here that this is by ijma', by the consensus of the ummah. You cannot eat or drink in the daytime in Ramadan or during fasting. Whether it is fard or mustahab, either way it will invalidate the fast. Also, Imam al-Nawawi in his Majmu', Imam Muwaffaquddin ibn Qudama in al-Mughni, and Ibn Munzir in his Ijma' have documented this to be by consensus. So what do we have? We have the Quran, we have Sahih Ahadith, and we have consensus. So no discussion here. Alhamdulillah, we understand this. Tayyib, spousal relations we'll get to, inshallah. First, we'll continue down this list here. What about entering something, and this is the third, through the nose that would reach the throat, and from the throat meaning would reach the digestive system. Okay? Now, what does it mean akal wa shurb? Yani, what does it mean to eat or drink? And again, I'm trying to keep this brief for the sake of covering the matan. But the ulama of this ummah went into linguistics and ahadith and looked at the hadith. For example, where Rasulullah said to baligh, to exaggerate or go further with wudu, with madmada and istinshaq, illa sa'im, except for the one who's fasting. And this hadith is reported by Abu Dawud and At-Tirmidhi and Nasal, Ibn Majah, and it's a sahih, authentic hadith. So what does that tell you? That if water goes down your nose or through your throat, meaning when you're doing madmada and istinshaq, then it could invalidate your fast. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbid to go to an exaggeration of doing this while fasting. You will still have to put water in your mouth, right? When you make wudu during Ramadan, you don't not put water in your mouth, but you don't do it so much that you're afraid that it will go down your throat. Tayyib. So from these ayat and these ahadith, a principle, an usul is established. That anything going in through your mouth or nose or anywhere that goes through your throat or ends up into your stomach, that will be considered as eating or drinking. Tayyib, this is a very important principle. Tayyib, what if somebody during Ramadan, without forgetfulness, on purpose, takes some water in their mouth and just spits it back out? Does that invalidate your fast? Tayyib, so now somebody could say, well, that's drinking, right? But it's not. Why? Because if you look at this hadith, it shows the principle that you can put mouth water in your mouth. Tayyib. Now the question gets to be, and this is a question we get every Ramadan, even though we clarified every Ramadan, but we still get it. Can you taste food during Ramadan? Meaning, while in the daytime, can you take a piece of the steak and eat it? No. You cannot taste in the eating part. But can you put something on your tongue, spit it out, wash out your mouth, meaning none of it goes past your throat? Yes. What is the dalil for this? This is a dalil, this hadith itself. But also hadith Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma that made it clear that if a woman, for example, is cooking and she wants to taste the food, she could. But as long as she doesn't swallow any of it. Any of the spice, if the taste touches the tongue, that does not invalidate the fast. But if any of it goes past your throat into your digestive system, then that will invalidate the fast. These clear adillah, these clear proofs set a principle. Tayyib. Having said that, many of the a'imma and ulama said to taste food unnecessarily is makruh, is disliked. Why? Because why are you doing it, right? And then you're taking a chance that some of that food may go down your throat, right? So why do it if you don't need to? But let's say you're making iftar for the masjid and you don't want everybody making dua against you, right, at iftar time, and you just taste some of the food and then you spit it out, you wash out your mouth, make sure none of it goes, your fast is fine. Same with our sisters, or in America, our brothers, who will be making iftar at home for the family. If you do taste the food and spit it out, alhamdulillah, your sawm, your fasting is still valid. But if anything goes down your nose or down obviously in your mouth, but with mouth we can understand eating and drinking. But if somebody takes nose drops, now we come with the mas'ala of nose drops. This is something we get every year as well. If you get nose drops and you put them in your nose, now there are halatan. There are two conditions that can come out of that. One is, the nasal spray. It sprays, but none of it, inshallah, in this scenario A, none of it goes past your sinuses into your throat. Right? You make a spray where it just stays in your nose and drips out. That would not invalidate your fast. Why? Because what is the dalil that it would? The dalil for it invalidating would be that if it went past your sinuses, past your nasal area up here, and go down towards your throat. So if you sprayed a nasal spray but made sure that none of it went past your nose, your sawm is fine. Just like wudu, when you put water in your nose and you take it out. But if you spray it in such a way that it does go down, you spray it far enough that it does go down your throat, it will invalidate your fast. So nasal spray is not like a yes or no answer. You have to look at how you're doing it. If it's something that does not go past the nose, then your sawm is fine. If it does, and you taste it in the back of your throat, or you feel it dripping past your sinuses, your fasting will become invalid. That day will have to be repeated. So this is the third of the things that invalidate the fast we covered. Is something that enters your nose but goes all the way down to your throat and hence into your digestive system. You will still make imsak and you will make up that day. طيب. Next is what we call an enema. When something is inserted into the rear and it goes all the way in, meaning it actually reaches past the anal area and goes into the body, right? Because now you are using another method to get something into the end of the digestive system. This will invalidate your fast. طيب. Now, what if somebody is swimming and they think, oh, if you're swimming, water goes in your ear or water goes in your... No, right? Unless when you're swimming, you start to swallow water. Right? If you're swimming and you swallow water into your mouth or nose, that does. But water going into your ears does not invalidate your fast. Why? Does your ear cavity reach your stomach? If you think that, you need to go back to school, get Gray's Anatomy, and start to understand how the body works again, right? And the same thing with other parts of your body. When you're swimming, you may have other openings in the body. I'm not going to get explicit here. But water doesn't really go in, right? I mean, it's not like it shoots up. I don't know what kind of swimming you're doing. Maybe you're doing that istinja like that guy who called into that show, right? Anyway, so the fourth is an enema that enters the rear but enters the body through it, meaning getting into the digestive system. طيب. The fifth is kohl, or what they call surma or whatever, eyeliner or whatever that you put in the eyes, if it is put so much that you can taste it in your throat. إلى حلقه. This would be very unusual. Like most people who put the kohl do not put that much. But when I was studying this mas'ala, I looked up the books of Islamic medicine, and they had certain medical treatments where they would tell you have to put this into your eyes until it reaches such an amount that you can taste it. So apparently, and I've never put kohl that much in my eyes, but apparently it does happen. So if you put kohl, it does not invalidate your fast. But if you put so much that it looks like you have a black eye, and you can taste it, if the taste reaches your throat, it would invalidate your fast. طيب. And what is the dalil for that? The dalil that it does not invalidate is the fact that many of the Sahaba used to put kohl in the night and then wake up when they were fasting and they had it, and it did not. But the dalil that if the taste reaches your throat, it does invalidate, it's going back to the asal of it. That if anything in the external kohl is reaching your throat and going into your body, then it is like eating and drinking, so that would invalidate the fast. And I found this in the books of the other madahib as well. This is not something strange. طيب, so how many is that now? 5. Sixth, anything that enters any other part of the body but reaches the throat. طيب? Meaning, if somebody nowadays they get a shot in their jaw, and the shot is such that the taste of it reaches the throat, right? Then that would invalidate your fast. What about dental procedures? Well, dental procedures in and of themselves would not invalidate your fast, but when the dentist is doing the procedure and they're putting that water, that would invalidate your fast. So if they weren't putting any water, and you didn't swallow like any, if they're doing a cleaning, they use that little minty cleaning stuff that you can taste, that would invalidate if it goes to your throat. But like, let's say you're getting a tooth pulled, pulling out the tooth would not invalidate your fast, right? And swallowing your own saliva does not invalidate, so in that procedure. But if you can, do your dental procedures other time, because if they put the water and things, that would invalidate your fast. So that is the sixth. From any other place, if the nutrients go into your body and go through your throat or reach your digestive system, then that would invalidate your fast. There is an exception given here, except through the urethra. Urethra is the tube that you urinate through. And the ulama put this exception because that tube is open for men and women, and when you swim or something, or if you take ghusl, maybe slight amounts of water would go up in there, but that does not invalidate the fast. Why? Because does it reach your stomach? No, it does not. The urethra tube does not reach your jawf, does not reach your throat, does not reach your stomach. So even if you had to put medication, for example, for a UTI or something like this, that there would not invalidate your fast. But if it was an enema and the medication went further up, then that would invalidate your fast. Tayyib, what about vomiting? Vomiting invalidates the fast unless it is involuntary. Tayyib. And there is a clear hadith from Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is reported by Imam Ahmad and Abu Dawud and At-Tirmidhi and Nisai, Ibn Majah, Ad-Darimi, Ibn Hibban and Al-Hakim, both of them graded to be Sahih. Imam Al-Bayhaqi also reported it. Ibn Nahwi, which is famously known as Ibn Mulaqqin, in Badr al-Munir, considered to be a Hasan, reliable hadith, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarified that whoever vomits and he is fasting, then he does not have qada. He does not have to make that up, except if it was on purpose. Very clear. So it doesn't matter how much here. Some people like this much vomit or that much. Here the hadith is very clear. If you happen to vomit, like you feel sick in Ramadan, blah, you throw up, right? Whether it affects your wudu or not, it's a different issue. Different mas'ala, different ahkam. We're talking about siyam. Does your fast get affected by involuntary vomiting? No. But if you're feeling kind of not good and you put your finger in the mouth and blah, make yourself throw up, then your sawm is invalid. Then you have to make that up. Tayyib. And you have to do imsak until Maghrib and then make that up. Tayyib. What about if you are about to throw up and you control it? I had a brother call me one time on the car. Hafiz Fayaz, I don't know if you brothers know him, mashallah. He's like, I'm about to throw up, what should I do? Right? So if you are about to throw up and you look up or you control it and none of it comes up past your throat, you're fine. If you're about to throw up and food comes past your throat, throw it up. If food comes past your throat and then you stop yourself and swallow it, your fast is invalid. You understand? If food comes up, you throw it out, you're fine. It was not voluntary. You didn't make yourself throw up. You're okay. Small amount, big amount. But if food came up past your throat, and now you were like, oh, I don't want to throw up, and you swallow it back, now you had food that was out, that went past down your throat, you have to repeat that day. Tayyib? So if you do have to throw up, just throw up. It's okay, man. We'll clean it up later. Don't worry about it. But don't make it so that you invalidate your fast here. Tayyib. Or what is called masturbation, and if you don't know what that is, then talk to Dr. Zakir Naik. Anyway, if you fondle up to a point with your spouse that either muddy, so there is 8 is masturbation, 9 is fondling where money comes out, actual semen, or muddy comes out. So this is 8, 9, and 10. Or by repeated looking, if you're looking at something that you shouldn't be looking at, and some drips out because of that looking, not just by looking, but repeated looking where something drips, then that is number 11. All of those will invalidate the fast. Go ahead. Okay, in the end, inshallah. Tayyib. The last thing we will cover, and I wanted to spend a lot more time on this, but I'm not going to be able to, so I'll try to summarize, is the one, and this is number 12 now. So we've done 8, 9, 10, 11, we're together. Masturbation, touching or any fondling in a way that either money or number 10, muddy comes out, or repeated looking where something comes out. Those will all invalidate your fast. The number 12 is, and this is a 2-part of it, where you have either hijama done or you do the hijama, right? Which is cupping, right? Hijama is when you are, or ihtajama, either you're doing it or you are having it done where blood comes out. If you do dry cupping, for example, as there's dry cupping, it does not invalidate the fast. But wet cupping does. Now, here we have an issue that we deal with in our times. What about giving blood? Giving blood while you're fasting. Well, giving blood takes out a good amount of blood, like it would be for hijama. So that would invalidate your fast if you're donating blood. But if you're giving blood for a blood test, usually the blood is very small. So small amounts of blood coming out does not invalidate your fast. So, if you have a nosebleed or if you have a tooth bleed or something like this, that does not invalidate your fast. But if you give a small amount of blood for a blood test, if it's not the likes of hijama, then that would not invalidate your fast. But if they're taking 10 vials from you, or if you're donating blood, which is a large amount, then that would invalidate your fast. Here I will mention the dalil obviously is a clear hadith reported by Imam Ahmad and Abu Dawud and Ibn Majah and Nasal, Darmi, Ibn Hibban, Al-Hakim, both of them reported it and graded to be Sahih, Al-Bayhaqi, and as we mentioned about Ibn Nahwi, Ibn Mulaqqin, graded it to be Sahih, Shaykhuna Albani, Ahmed Shakir and others also supported it to be Sahih. Wa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Aftara al-hajim, yani the one who does, and mahjum, and the one who has hijama done. They both have invalidated their fast. There is a hadith from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma that Rasulullah sallallahu was fasting and had hijama done. But as you can look in Fath al-Bari, Ibn Hajar explains this, and as is Ibn Mulaqqin and other ulama, that here there are, as the Shaykh Ibn Abbas also says, that one explanation is that this is mansukh. And this was earlier, and then Rasulullah sallallahu ordered it, so the order came to be the nasikh. But the interesting thing is that the Hanabila are the only madhab that take this opinion. The other three madhahib said that hijama does not invalidate your fast. Okay? And this is from the mufradat of the Hanabila. And some people say, it's only the Hanabila. Well, you can't say it like that. Why? Because the adilla for it, no doubt, are present. And after looking at this mas'ala for a long time myself, and looking at the books of different ulama and different madhahib and different adilla, I am very comfortable that this is the correct opinion, even if the Hanabila are the only madhab that took it. And Shaykh Ibn Abbas and Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan and other a'imma and ulama all took this view as well. Why? There are a bunch of reasons. One, because the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, if you look in Fath al-Bari, there is ilal in the wording. It's not in sanadan and all that's fine, but there is ilal in the wording, and you can look into this deeper if you like. Secondly, if we look at the fi'l of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the amr of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the amr usually, unless there is a qarina, has to take precedence. So here you have fi'l. Maybe Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like he used to fast into the night, like there was something that he could physically handle, but he did not allow his ummah to do. So if he did something, but he ordered us not to do it, the order has to take precedence. Third, when we see a fi'l, and then you see an amr, usually this denotes that the amr is the nasikh and the fi'l is mansukh. And with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he ordered something, then he has to order against it. If he did something before the order came and he ordered it, then the nasikh and mansukh. So looking at all of this, no doubt, authentically as it is established, and what is correct is that hijama does invalidate the fast, and anything that would be like it invalidates the fast. Tayyib, but if any of the above mentioned 12 things, 13 if you want to split that into two, but I put it as one, are done out of forgetfulness or out of force, then it does not invalidate your fast. Tayyib. So let's say Musa is fasting and he totally forgets, he goes to the kitchen, he sees a cup of water, he starts drinking it, and then when he finishes it goes yummy, then he realizes, I was fasting. What's the hukam on his fasting? His fasting is fine. Right? His fasting is fine. And the dalil from this is, there are many. First, the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned, and it's Bukhari and Muslim, muttafaqun alayh, that man nasiya wa huwa sa'im, whoever forgets and he is fasting, fa akala wa shariba, and he is eats or drinks, and there is nothing on his fast, verily this is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives to who He wishes, and so on. Different rawat of the hadith, but this hadith is established, this shows it. Another dalil is the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Allah has forgiven this ummah for the things that they do out of forgetfulness or force. Those are all adillah that we can find. And anything that you're forced, you can, many ayat and ahadith will establish, meaning if you're fasting and somebody comes up with a gun and tells you eat this food, right? Like, may Allah, I mean, you think this is something strange, but may Allah protect and help our brothers and sisters in China. But they're going through this. They're fasting, and then military officers will walk into schools and make the teachers and students eat, or in their concentration camps, or so on. So we ask Allah that Allah accepts their fasting even when they are forced to eat or drink, because that is not their niyyah. So anything you do out of forgetfulness or out of force for the above mentioned things will not invalidate your fast. You would not have to make it up. Anything that we have mentioned so far that you do without force and without forgetting will require you to make up one day. What is the makeup for that? 1 day of fasting. Tayyib. There is one more thing that invalidates the fast that we're not going to cover right now, which is going to be our 13th, which is spousal relations. Why? Because the makeup of it is different, and it's only for that. Everything else, you just make up 1 day. That is very serious, and we'll get into that inshallah. Tayyib. If somebody does not look at anything, nor do they fondle or touch anything, but just from thoughts, shaitan brings thoughts in your mind, some ejaculation happens, just from that. You didn't look at anything, you didn't touch anything, then your fast is valid. Why? Because the hukam there comes to the one who has a wet dream. And the one who has a wet dream, it does not invalidate their fast. Right? But this is not somebody who looks at something or touches or does anything. This is just from pure thoughts. So just thoughts or a wet dream would not invalidate the fast. Tayyib. If somebody wakes up and there is some food in their mouth, let's say you had suhoor and you ate, mashallah, you finished eating, you crashed out, adhan happened, you wake up, right? Now you wake up and some of the food from suhoor is still in your mouth. If you throw it out right away, right? If you get rid of it right away, then your fast is fine. But if you wake up realizing that you have food in your mouth and realizing the time of Fajr is in, and then you're like, let me just get rid of this, then your fast is invalid. Okay? If you accidentally swallow it, right? Like you made suhoor, you washed out your mouth, but there was some piece of food you didn't realize. Adhan happened, you started salah in Fajr, for example, and after salah you just sat down and you accidentally swallowed it, didn't even realize it was there, then again that would come under the ruling of accidental eating, right? Tayyib. So the next, if somebody does ghusl, if you make your ghusl, shari'i ghusl, or you do wudu, in both of those you will do madmadan, istinthar, to put water in the mouth and to take it out from the nose, right? Istinshaq and istinthar. So that does not invalidate the fast, but you should not you should not go to an extreme, like when you do the like that's it, don't gargle it, right? Don't take it to the back of the throat, don't sniff it where you get that bitter thing. Regularly you should in wudu, but not during fasting. Tayyib. And if you did more than 3 times in wudu, that does not invalidate your fast. If you do wudu and you are fasting and knowingly you go and the water does go into your throat, it would invalidate your fast. So you have to be careful. Make sure that it does not go down the throat, meaning in an exaggeration. If it went down on accident, you were not exaggerating the water, and after wudu you realize like a little bit went down on accident without going to an exaggeration, then that would not invalidate your fast. Tayyib. The one who eats or drinks and at the tulu of Fajr. So now it's the time for Fajr to come in. When do you stop eating and drinking? This is very important. Okay. Some calendars have a thing called imsak, which they tell you like 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, before the fast begins, before Fajr comes in, you have to stop eating. There is no such thing. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made dua for this ummah and said there is khair in it, and as long as you delay the suhoor, meaning closest to the time of the adhan, when the time of Fajr comes in. Right? And he said about this is the way of the Anbiya, and there are so many adillah. Even if we have some of the Salaf that may have done it, that is their taqwa, their wara', it is not a hukum on the ummah. Tayyib? So what does that mean? You can eat and drink and everything that is forbidden during the fast until the time of Fajr enters. And that is what is the hukum of the Quran. So to do it closest to the time of Fajr entering is the greatest obedience of the hukum of the Quran. So don't half an hour before Fajr, I'm going to stop eating. No. Tayyib. So that's one extreme. The other extreme. The adhan, there are two adhans for Fajr, right? The Fajr al-Kadhib and Fajr al-Sadiq. Fajr al-Awwal, Fajr al-Thani, right? The first adhan that is given, which most countries don't do it anymore. Alhamdulillah, I saw it in Saudi, but I haven't seen it except some areas in Pakistan, but most of the world does not do it. Tayyib? Which is the adhan when Fajr hasn't entered yet. Okay? The first adhan, like if you're in Mecca and you hear it, that first adhan is before the time of Fajr. If that adhan happens, that Bilal radiallahu anhu used to give in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can continue and eat. Because, why? Because the time of Fajr has not entered. The second adhan of Fajr, which in most countries is the only adhan of Fajr, meaning the adhan that is given when the time of Fajr has entered, can you continue to eat and drink during that adhan? No. The hadith about if you're drinking something to finish it is about the first adhan. It is not about the second adhan. Allah has ordered in the Quran that once the time of Fajr enters, you cannot eat or drink. How can you continue? This is insanity. Right? People, there is the adhan of Fajr going off. Fajr is in, and they're like, brother, let me finish. Brother, adhan is still going on. There's another muaddin, another part. He's going to give adhan next. I'm going to keep going. Ya akhi, what is this? No. Once the adhan, and why the adhan? Because the adhan tells you the time of Fajr is in. If you don't hear the adhan, but you have an app, or you can see, and you know, yaqinan, that the time of Fajr is in, khalas. You cannot eat or drink after that. Clear? So next time we're giving the actual adhan of salah, meaning time of salah is in, and you have a cup of water in your hand, put it down. Okay? The hadith about continuing is for the first adhan. Know the difference. Tayyib. But what if you have shak? Tayyib? Meaning, let's say you are somewhere else. You're not at home, so you're not sure about the time. And you're not sure if adhan of Fajr is in yet. And you eat something because you don't know. Right? And then later you think, man, maybe the Fajr was in. Like, I'm not sure. What is the hukam here? Your sawm is fine. Why? Because the yaqeen is not outdone with shak. لا يزال اليقين بالشك. You do not take away that which you're sure about with that which you're doubtful about. So when it's night and it's pitch black, are you sure it's night? Yes. What is the shak? Maybe Fajr has come in, but you're not sure. So here, what you should do is stop eating. But if you did eat, and it was that time of shak, about tulu al-shams, about the rising of the sun, meaning the entering of Fajr Salah, then your sawm is fine because your yaqeen was what? That it's night. Your shak was what? Maybe Fajr has come in, but you don't know yet. Tayyib? We clear on this issue? Okay. But what about if your shak is about the setting of the sun? Meaning you're fasting in Ramadan, I mean, here, inshallah, we should know which calendar is correct because we went out and looked and all of that, right? Or if you know, like you hear the adhan, then khalas, you follow that. But what if you're traveling somewhere and you're really not sure and you don't have data and you don't have any apps and you can't look it up and you can't see the sunset? And here, now it's daytime, but you think maybe Maghrib is in. Should you eat? La. You should be sure that Maghrib is in. And if you ate something under shak at this time, your sawm is invalid. Why? Where was the yaqeen now? Where is the yaqeen? Yaqeen is that it's daytime. The shak here was that maybe the sunset. So here you have to be sure. It doesn't mean you have to wait till Isha or something, but you should be relatively sure that Maghrib is in to eat. If you're not sure, then you should wait until you are. You don't have to, like I said, it doesn't have to be pitch black or something, but you should be relatively sure. Because here the yaqeen is that it's daytime, and the shak is that about ghurub al-shams, about the setting of the shams. Or if somebody thinks that it is night, but in fact it was day, this is another situation. But inshallah we'll stop here so we can continue in the next dars about the things that